So, welcome to the Taurus Full Moon. This is the time in the lunar cycle when I turn off my air conditioning here in the southern hemisphere because it is very, very hot. But in the northern hemisphere, I'm sure that you guys are all nice and cozy, just like getting into that like winter snuggle vibe. And the Taurus full moon ceremony for this month is talking about the sacred act of sleep. And so I know growing up in Alaska, hibernation was like a real thing. You know, the animals hibernated, and a lot of us in Alaska tended to hibernate because our winters were so long. But now that I find myself in the southern hemisphere, I'm still having those like entering winter vibes. And this month's ceremony is really great for tapping into our ability to manifest and co-create while we sleep. So it's like the best way to manifest. Like you take a little siesta and you wake up and things have popped into your reality. If anybody's familiar with Abraham Hicks and like the vortex and law of attraction, the number one piece of advice that Abraham or Esther always gives that resonated the most with me was, when in doubt, take a nap. Because especially in our fast-paced world where we're go, 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 go all the time, sometimes the best thing that we can do is just take a break. And napping is a great way, or sleeping is a great way to unwind and stop putting energy into the vortex or the co-creation field or the quantum field and come to us. So we're going to talk about the sacred act of sleep. Rest for the weary while being very much alive. So have you ever heard the phrase, you can sleep when you die, or felt guilty for wanting to take a siesta when the world around you seems to be going nonstop? While the message that sleep is a waste of time may have been one that many of us were programmed to believe as a part of modern industrialized society, it's actually a profoundly fundamental aspect of our overall physical, emotional, and spiritual well-being while we are in living, breathing human form. Often referred to as the quickening, the present time and space that we are collectively partaking in is one of acceleration for many aspects of humanity. If life is feeling like a grueling race with a lightning pace where the chilly winds do wail, then sensual Taurus, the sign of indulgent comfort and deep relaxation, is here to lead you down the temporary hibernation trail. So as we hover around the Dia de los Muertos and Halloween season that we just had back at the new moon, that heightens our sense of and our collective focus on the space of transition in the afterlife, this full moon ritual will capitalize on the power of sleep by exploiting the ability to connect to the ethers via the somnolescent process. So I always end with love, light, and a sleep mask, but I'm actually going to take a second and talk a little bit more about this month's ritual, because there is both a practical aspect to it of how we can get better sleep, and through having better sleep patterns, be able to touch into our innate spiritual gifts and receive signs and symbols while we sleep, which is actually the more magical. So there's a physical aspect to the ritual and a magical aspect to this month's ritual. The practical is getting your sleep space nice and cozy, darkening the room, which for women can regulate menstruation cycles and ovulation cycles and be great in conceiving and in that space. And what else do we do that's physical? Just making our bedrooms like really inviting places to sleep, because we spend so much of our time there, and it's really a great place to put all the physical aspects into play that can help us like rest and, quiet our minds so that we can, have this more magical experience, which is connecting to the ethers. So when we sleep, there's this thing called the silver cord, which you'll read about in this month's ritual, that connects your astral body to your physical body. And while we sleep, it kind of stretches and it lets you go out into what people call the quantum field, the vortex, infinite intelligence, source, heaven. Every name that I've ever heard describe it all more or less describes the same place. And it's this place where we can get access to our higher self and the information that our own intuition and our own inner beings are trying to share with us. And it's a space where we can connect with our loved ones in spirit our guides, our master teachers, and our angels. And in a place of rest, or when we're sleeping, our unconscious mind is at play, and it filters out, well, it actually lets more in, because our conscious mind is what filters out a lot of those experiences that we may have that could make us uneasy or make us say, whoa, I'm not sure if I'm ready for this. But in a dream state, it's a lot easier to connect to the collective unconscious, to connect to spirit, and to just basically connect to our higher selves. So that's what this month's ritual is. So for members, you have access to that in the members portal, or wherever you're viewing this. If you don't have access, you know how to reach me. And yeah, that is it. The last thing that we're going to do before we wrap up this full moon ceremony is, I hope you have your blank piece of paper, where actually this should be the reverse side of your Taurus new moon ritual. You should have your 4 square. Hopefully this looks familiar to everybody. You'll have health, wealth, love, and perfect self-expression written on the front, and that's when you plant your intentions at the new moon. And then on the reverse side, you will have the full moon, where you reflect on what has manifested in your life. So it's the harvest. The new moon you plant, the full moon you harvest. So hopefully you have one from 6 months ago. If not, if you're just now diving into this space, I highly recommend getting out your calendar and going 6 months back to check when the Taurus new moon was in your time-space reality. Almost all calendars, even Western or especially Western calendars, will actually have in the 12-month layout 2 moons. Sometimes they have more, but usually there are at least the new and the full moon indicated, if it doesn't actually say new and full moon. You'll know it's a new moon because it'll be a circle just that's empty. And then you'll know it's full because you'll have it kind of like shaded in. So you're going to want to go back and check. Again, if you're a member, you have access to the Lunar Almanacs, where you can go and check this. All of the resources are within the Golden Otter platform, if that's what you're looking for. And if you're not inside that, go ahead and just Google it. But yeah, go back and check and see what was in your world 6 months ago. What were you hoping for? What were you wishing for? You can check text messages, emails, notes in your calendar, little scraps of paper that kind of tend to get buried away. Anything that you can find that might have a date on it to indicate that it was 6 months ago, and you can reflect on that process. And if you were around back at the Taurus new moon and planted your new moon wish list, your universal wish list that we literally planted in a garden, we planted the intentions and then we planted the intentions in the garden, which hopefully you took a picture and made a copy. You can go and see what has manifested in the last 6 months for you, because that's generally when like larger life projects or intentions or wishes or desires come into form. And yeah, I hope to hear in the comments like what's manifested for you since the Taurus new moon back in May. And if you do the ritual this month, there's a really great way to get into sync with your higher self, your inner being, on what has manifested and why, and what hasn't manifested and maybe why. And it's a great place to see what the path forward is, because the full moon illuminates that for us. Okay, so thank you so much for joining us for the Taurus new moon. I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful season. Taurus season. With love and light, Autumn.